This is the Shi Association. A faction in Limbus company that a lot of people would consider forgettable. Like, no, actually, it's not like the title of this video is Shi Association, the most forgettable. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video in the first place. But like, actually, they are pretty much forgotten. They've been here with us since the start of the game and have not received anything since launch. Not to mention they are the worst off out of all the associations because they have no 000s in their ranks. Even the OV Association, who currently has a single identity as of the time of recording, has a 000 identity, which is unfathomable. But what's more unfathomable is that they're actually pretty strong despite seeming bad. You might be asking me, but Welvader, how can they all be good when they literally need to stagger themselves to be any good? The short answer is that they are surprisingly good and work extremely well in mirror dungeons with a team built around them. The long answer? The entire video. There's a good chance you might not even know about this because of how forgettable they are, but Shi Association's main gimmick is becoming stronger if they are under 50% health. This is reflected in various skills, such as Don Quixote getting haste if she's under 50% HP, Heathcliff gaining attack weight, and Ishmael gaining extra coins. And speaking of Ishmael, let's start with her. So Shi Ishmael looks to be a pretty unassuming identity at first. Her skill 1 and skill 3 look pretty normal. Skill 1 is a 2-coin skill that gains points on the hit and from itself. Meanwhile skill 3 is a skill that spends that points to deal extra damage. However, if you look at her skill 2, you will find out that she is anything but ordinary. Her skill 2 looks alright on service level, but things start to become wacky quickly when you notice her 50 health conditional. The thing is, this is actually a lot stronger than it looks. These coins aren't just reused, they are used in the clash. So that means you clash it with all those 4 coins and could potentially roll up to 21, which for skill 2 is an absurdly high roll actually. Not to mention, with the amount of coins she rolls, it is very likely you will stagger an enemy midway through your attack, which means the rest of her coins will benefit from the extra damage from the stagger. So you definitely want her to be below 50% health. Moving on to the strongest Shi identity, Shi Heathcliff. This is because of his skill 3, but let's start with skill 1 and 2 first. They're actually pretty boring, so I'll go over them quickly. Skill 1 has a base of 4 and rolls up to a 10, but gains 2 final power up if he's below 50% health. Skill 2 on the other hand has a base power of 5 and a coin power of 10, and also gains 2 final power up if he's below 50% health. Skill 3 on the other hand is really fascinating because it is one of the very few AoE attacks in the entire game. Like, no seriously, Shi Heathcliff stands among the leagues of Spice Shi Sang, Regret Faust, and Freischuch Otis with the identities that have attacks with attack weight. Which is generally strange, but I'm not here to complain about that. But on a serious note, this skill is actually really strong. A skill with a base power of 5 and a coin power of 6 may look unassuming, but the thing is that at the cost of 5 health, Heathcliff deals 50% extra damage with the skill, and this makes his mediocre skill 3 into a really strong damage dealer, especially with the attack rate. Like, no seriously, and yes, once again I am jump scaring you with the math, like I did in the G-Corp Otis video, don't run away just yet. But theoretically, if he is at 10 points and he is below 50% health, he will do 96 raw damage. You can pause the video right here to see the calculation for yourself, but to give a comparison, Enclair with his skill 3 can do about 90 raw damage. Wow, I guess now I have to make a video about how Shi Heathcliff is actually secretly the strongest identity in the game. Ending off with Shi Association Section 5, Don Quixote, which is weird because she's a 00 whilst being a director, but I think she has that title of director because she's cool. I mean, just look at her. She's definitely someone who subscribed to Welvader. Like you are. Right? But anyways, Dawn is probably the most reliable but boring of the Shi identities. This is because she barely benefits from being below 50% health. First beginning with her skill 1 has a base power of 4 and a coin power of 7. This is pretty standard for her skill 1, all things considered, but also gains haste. Oh boy, seems like she would work well in a certain team that relies on haste. Perhaps a team with G-Corp Otis, actually. I wonder if someone made a video about that. Anyway, skill 2, Dual Strike, comes in with a base power of 4 and a coin power of 6. This is the only part of her kit that actually benefits from being below 50% health, where she gets 4 haste. This seems pretty bad at first, but you gotta take into consideration she gains 3 haste on her second hit, and so she gains 7 whole haste from this single skill, which is actually kind of insane. This synergizes very well with their skill 3 actually. With a speed range of a 3 to a 6, the 7 haste guarantees her skill 3 will be very powerful and get the speed bonus, granting her 5 coin power bonus and allowing her to roll 30. Now, you may ask yourself, why did I tell you all of this? I told you all of this to eventually make you realize that despite all of these great things, they are fundamentally broken. Why is that, you may ask? Short answer, stagger bars. Long answer, the next segment. As much as I would love to say that these identities are great when they're below 50% health and declare that Heathcliff is better than Enclair immediately, we are leaving out some very important details here. You have to make it through the stagger bars. Like, trust me, I would love to make another video about something secretly being the best identity in the game, but I just can't. You lose out on way too much with staggered. If you want to use a defensive skill to get hit on purpose, you are losing out way too many turns. At best, you lose out on 1 turn and get through both the bars. At worst, you can lose out on 4 whole turns by both times getting hit intentionally. I don't think I have to be the one to tell you that this is a massive waste of time. And I think it is likely because of this that we have not gotten a single Shi identity since launch. Yes, that's right. Shi has gotten nothing, whilst other factions have grown since the start. But it is highly likely that because of the way Shi works in Limbus Company, we just aren't getting more identities for them. Because Project Moon just doesn't know what to do with them. For example, in Library of Runa, Project Moon's previous game, the Shi Association worked well because of the stagger bar and health bar being separated, meaning that you could get below 50% health without being staggered. In Limbus Company, however, you sadly cannot get below 50% health without getting staggered. Unless you're Blade Lineage Mersault, of course. So sadly, Shi Association, because of the way combat works in Limbus Company, is fundamentally just counterintuitive to how the game works and will always lose out on being staggered, no matter what. But what if I told you there is a way to minimize being staggered and lose out on absolutely nothing? That's right, you can get to 50% health and lose out on no actions at all. Because you don't have to get hit if you can drain your own health instead. With that, I present you Corroded AEDD and Ardor Blossom Star. Yes, for some reason Heathcliff and Ishmael, not Dawn sadly enough, but they specifically have some of the only egos in the game that can drain your health. This is great actually, because this allows you to very easily sacrifice your own health to get below 50%. Now, I know that you're about to ask me some very important questions, like, Welvader, there are a lot of flaws with the solution you are presenting. Both egos only take 10% of your health at a time. Heathcliff's AEDD requires gloom resources, which none of the Shis can generate. And worst of all, the egos both still stagger you when you sacrifice health. And to that, I have to ask you to hear me out here, okay? These identities are genuinely horrible in normal fights. Considering you want to get below 10 turns and getting staggered is a waste of a turn. However, they excel at modes where you retain your current health, for example, mirror dungeons. Now let's say hypothetically that you use these egos at the end of every fight. You can basically decrease your health slowly while never sacrificing anything, because getting staggered at the end of a fight means nothing. As for the gloom resource generation, well, I have come up with a team that manages to not only generate gloom, but really complement the Shi identities in mirror dungeons. Give a grand welcome to, and pun not intended, Now, I know what this may look like. You're probably thinking, Welvader, what a genuine have you cooked up right now? Just give me some time to explain in the next section, alright? Because this may be one of the strongest teams in Mirror Dungeon. There's a certain design philosophy in this team and a big reason of why I chose it in the first place. First of all, big reason why I chose these three specifically is because they generate gloom. This is important for ADD because it requires gloom to be used, but another big reason why these were chosen is because they share sin affinities with the rest of the Shi Association, and as such, also view Ardor Blossom Star incredibly well. But most importantly, this team consists of only 4 sin types, which means that they can very easily make sin resonance. And keep this in mind for later, this is going to be very important. Anyway, now that I've explained basic Limbus mechanics, what actually makes this team so great, and why were these identities chosen in the first place? Surely it's not to just form resonance, right? Like I said earlier, this team complements the Shi identities very well, and they complement them back. For example, let's take a look at Remnant Faust. You can also replace her with Zwei Faust and W Corp Faust, since they share similar affinity typings. However, I chose her because she could go the quickest out of them all. Now, why is this so important? Surely I'm not building another haste team, right? Well, you see, it is actually important to make maximum usage of Hexadale. Yes, that's right. Faust is actually really good in this team, because it generates a lot of envy for Hexadale to eat up, since it just requires 6 envy. Lastly, Faust was chosen because of Fluid Sac, which this team feels perfectly, funny enough. This is really just an emergency heal in case Heathcliff and Ishmael start going a bit too close to death's door, or Enclair starts going clinically insane. Speaking of which, actually, Enclair really needs no introduction, I think, but the reason he was chosen was because he has important sin affinities. However, he has some of the best fitting egos for this team. He has both a Rat and a Lost ego that are perfectly fueled by this team. This is important because Resonance is going to make them a lot more powerful, but also you can slot them in to continue a chain in case Sinclair breaks it. But overall he is a pretty strong and solid pick for this team, and fits him perfectly. Lastly, Liu Hongnu. He may be a weird pick initially, but trust me, he's a pretty integral part of the team. He is probably the more below average clashing power team, but the Resonance makes up for it. Though what he provides for the team is his ego, Land of Illusion. Land of Illusion is generally just a really strong AoE skill that effectively drains no sanity and requires mostly gloom resources. This makes this ego really spammable actually. And speaking of ego, you might have noticed a certain team already. This team can fuel and effectively spam some really good egos, not to mention a handful of them are mono-fueled. Remember how this team has nothing but Lust, Envy, Wrath and Gloom? Well, it's really good for spamming these specifically. Like, no, generally, it's almost like these egos were made for this team. Do you have a lot of Envy to spare? Use Hexdale. Got a lot of Lust to spare? Lifetimes 2, done. And I think you get a point with Gloom and Land of Illusion. Now, you may be wondering what is Wrath used for exactly? Well, Wrath is used for the ego, like and subscribe to Welvader. That's right, at the cost of just 5 Rat resources, you can like and subscribe right now, and get a 3-star in your next temple. Isn't that just such a great benefit? But okay, for real, there isn't something that takes mostly Rat in this team. But still, this is a pretty interesting team dynamic and surprisingly strong. They have a lot of synergy with each other, and can spam some really good ego, whilst also allowing the Shi Identities to get below 50% health. Except Dawn, of course. But if this team at all sounds interesting to you, I'd recommend running it in a mirror dungeon. Oh yeah, speaking of mirror dungeons, remember when I said that this is one of the strongest teams in mirror dungeon? Yeah, how about we explore that a little bit? As stated before, the general game plan you want to have with the Shi Identities is to have Heathcliff use Corroded AEDD and Ishmael use Corroded Art of Blossom Star at the end of fights. If you could use it without getting staggered, however, I'll recommend it, but that's the general game plan. But you may be wondering if that is truly all I have to say about mirror dungeons, because after all, the video timeline doesn't lie. I have a lot to say for this segment. Well, remember how this entire team consists of only 4 sin affinities, and how to keep in mind that the Shi all share the same 2 affinities. Yeah, this is the part where it gets important. You can even say it is not the Shi Identities being below 50% health that makes them so great, but the fact that they all share the same affinities and are so easily adaptable with others who share similar affinities. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this team has the least amount of sin typing you can have in the game so far. And it is exactly because of that which makes them so strong, because it is all about consistency and the ego gifts. No, I'm not kidding. An unintentional great part of the Shi Identities that legitimately no one realizes is how good they are paired with a lot of ego gifts, and the rest of the team pairs well with them too. Not even I realized this midway through script writing. Let me elaborate. In mirror dungeons you can find ego gifts, which are items that allow you to gain benefits that are either pretty general or are tailored towards a certain kind of status effect. But what's more important is that a lot of ego gifts have interactions with sin affinities. For example, let's take a look at Fiery Down. This is a pretty common ego gift that allows you to apply 3 burn when hitting enemies with a skill that applies burn or lost skill. In this team, it is really strong. You have 2 burn identities to begin with, and now you've made the entire team a burn team because everyone has lost. Let's look at Woundclair too. It does a similar thing, but if you upgrade it, it is the same thing but with Wrath and Bleed instead. And nearly the entire team has Wrath except for Faust. Now this entire team is a Bleed team. Do you perhaps see a pattern yet? If you haven't, let me list off a few more things. Helterfly's Dream inflicts fire if you get Wrath Resonance. Barbed Snare inflicts Rupture to everyone if you get Lost Resonance. And so does Thorny Path but for sinking. Envy Resonance causes Dreaming Electric Sheep to give everyone offense and defense level up. Phantom Pain does essentially the same thing but for Gloom Resonance. Do you perhaps see what I'm getting at here? This team manages to very consistently use a lot of ego gifts available in Mirror Dungeon, and it is surprisingly strong. No, genuinely, let me list off a few more ego gifts that this team manages to use very well. Helterfly's Dream, Barbed Snare, Thorny Path, Dreaming Electric Sheep, Phantom Pain, Wound Claret, Fiery Down, Perversion, Coffee and Cranes, Eclipse of Scarlet Moth, Bloody Gadget, Standard Duty Battery, Pinpoint the Logic Circuit, Pendant of Nostalgia, Endorphin Kit, Headless Portrait, Lightning Rod, Employee Card, Curriculum Vitae, Nixie Divergence, and lastly Oscillating Bracelet. With some honourable mentions going to Rusted Cutting Knife for being literally useless. I would like to remind you, this is a total of 21 ego gifts that work very well in this team that rely on Shi Affinities. To put that in perspective, this is 1/5 of the entire Mirror Dungeon pool that works amazingly with this team. Literally 21 out of 100 total ego gifts. It is genuinely one of the strongest Mirror Dungeon teams out there because of the fact that they activate so many ego gifts, and this makes them ridiculously flexible. This team can literally become a burn team, a bleed team, a rupture team, a sinking team, and goddammit, they can even become a charge team with the right kind of setup. And yes, they can even utilize Goddamn Tremor because Ishmael's base ego can burst it. Do you see what I'm getting at here? This team is ridiculously powerful and it is not even funny. And it's all because of the Shi Association having some of the most commonly used Shi Affinities for ego gifts. The thing is that most of these ego gifts are very common, and so you'll be very likely to find them, especially with them making up 21% of the entire item pool. And you wanna know the best part? It doesn't even end there. If you genuinely want to hypermax this team to the max possible potential, you can make it so that these items show up 24% of the time. If you deactivate all new discovery nodes except for the base one and rupture ego gifts, you can remove some irrelevant ego gifts from the possible options to increase the chance for the ones you want. But yes, that's right, this is probably legitimately the only team that becomes stronger by deactivating the new discovery nodes. If you deactivate them all, you can turn 21 of the total 100 ego gifts into 21 of the total 88 ego gifts. And if I haven't told you on this team yet, then I urge you to go ahead and try this team out in Mirror Dungeon and come back to this video afterwards. In fact, let me know what you think of this team in the comments. And if I fully convinced you, then go ahead and subscribe. Because this team is genuinely a really strong team in Mirror Dungeon.